Hello my beautiful friends. Today I am so excited to be bringing you my September reading wrap up. I read over 20 books this month. It was a pretty good month for me. I also read some classic mysteries and a nonfiction, which I'm very excited about because I would like to read more nonfiction here and there, and I had a really good time with it. So as usual, this video is separated into genres, so feel free to skip around to whatever you are most interested in, but we're gonna start with our cozy mysteries first. For starters, I read A Shot of Scandal by Simone Steer. I have been meaning to get to this cozy mystery series for like a year now, ever since it came out. This is the Cafe Crimes mystery series. It features Parker Hayes. She is a former true crime podcaster from the big city. She's moving to a small town, I think it's Magnolia Grove, and she's opening a cafe there. And this first book, the cafe is not open. She is in the works of kind of fixing up the building. It's a very dilapidated building at the moment. But there is this big like high society gala at the Beauregard mansion nearby, and they're this very rich, kind of infamous family in the area. They own a lot, and this priceless necklace goes missing and someone is murdered. And Parker gets involved. I really enjoyed this. I think the characters in this are especially strong. I loved the Boston. I mean, you guys know I have my own Boston Terrier, so I'm a little biased, but I think the representation for the Boston Terrier was very accurate. I thought Parker was a really great character, very loyal, very persistent. I liked the true crime elements. There's an interesting subplot with her podcast and some of the reasons that she moved out to this small town, and I'm excited to see that develop in future books. And I really liked Nellie. Nellie was my favorite. She was kind of like the town busybody, and she was a hoot. I loved her. Can't wait for more Nellie. So I highly recommend this. I gave this 4 stars. This was my Patreon book club pick last month, and I'm excited to continue this book. It was a really good read for me. See, then I read this short story collection called Halloween Night Murder. It features cozy mystery short stories from Leslie Meyer, Lee Hollis, and Liz Ireland. I had read the first 2 authors, but never the last, which is featuring the one from the Mrs. Claus series, where Mrs. Claus is actually an amateur sleuth, and it was amazing. I have to read this series coming up to December. I loved all 3 short stories. I think the Lee Hollis one was my very favorite. It had the creepiest vibes. The Leslie Meyer one had more of a real life scary, like, how to put it, just very, you know, this is definitely like a realistic, very much does happen, unfortunately kind of more sad reality situation, but of course with the Halloween cozy elements. And then the Liz Ireland one was the most lighthearted with the Mrs. Claus. It takes place at the North Pole. There's like witches and polar bears and snowmen that talk. It is extremely whimsical and fun. It was like a Frosty the Snowman episode come to life, and I adored it. And it's inspired me to get into that book. And the Lee Hollis one was actually from the Haley Powell mystery series, and that one was creepy. It's Haley Powell and her 2 best friends, and they are stranded in the middle of nowhere with this mother and son, and the mother and son aren't who they say they are. It's very creepy. That one had the most creepy vibes, but it was fun. So definitely a great collection if you're looking for some Halloween stories for this month. I also read Ghostly Paws by Leanne Dobbs. This is the first in the Mystic Notch cozy mystery series, and I actually DNF'd this. This one, something about the main character really rubbed me the wrong way. I feel like she was so annoyed by anybody that would ask for her help, and I don't know, she just seemed really, I just didn't really care for her. She just kind of rubbed me the wrong way. I really liked the premise for it. Our main character is Willa. She is a former investigative journalist, which I thought would be a really cool element. And she also survived a car accident that was near fatal about a year ago. And ever since then, she can actually see ghosts. And in this one, a murder happens, and she is able to see the ghost of the person who was murdered. And they're asking for her help. But she just seemed annoyed a lot by that. I felt that was really weird. I don't know. I just didn't love it. I tried it on audio and it just wasn't for me, so I ended up putting it aside. I also listened to Killer Green Tomatoes by Lynn Cahoon this month. This is the second in the Farm to Table mystery series, which features 2 best friends who run a farm to table restaurant, which I think is a really fun concept because a lot of the cozy mysteries in the series have to do with local farms, but you got the restaurant element, so it's a really good one. And the main character has a goat. She has a goat, so if you're looking for a unique pet, that one is really fun. So Angie's the main character in this small Idaho town, her hometown. It does take place in the summer, and she's looking to add this green tomato recipe to her farm to table restaurant. So she's working with her sous chef Esteban and his cousin Javier, but Javier is a bit of a ladies' man, and his girlfriend ends up murdered, and he is a prime suspect, and Angie gets involved trying to clear his name because even though she thinks you know, he's a ladies' man. She definitely is like, I don't think he did it. And it's a good mystery. I thought this one was super well thought out. It had some very interesting clues and motives throughout this to like kind of throw you off with different things. And I really liked it. These are shorter audiobook listens, so if you're looking for kind of quick to the point cozies, this is a good series to check out. I gave it 4 stars. For a more supernatural read, I listened to one of the Sugar Shack Witch Mystery novellas by Danielle Garrett. This one is Sugar Cookies and Sirens. This is a Valentine's Day novella, and this was so sweet. Our main character in this is Rosella, or Ro. She is a witch, and she helps her family run their bakery. And this town they live in, everyone in the town has magical abilities or is a magical creature of some sort, whether it's like very mild, like just lightly supernatural abilities, to like full-on mermaids and sirens and stuff like that. So it's very fun. Our main character is a witch. I'm not going to give away what her abilities are because that's kind of a plot point for the first book, but in this one she is collaborating with a local business to make these like Valentine's Day goodie bags. So she's delivering these Valentine's Day cookies from the bakery when they get stolen along with the candles from the other shop, and the two of them go in together in the mystery. And I think the character who runs the candle shop was actually a main character from Danielle Garrett's other series, which I now really want to read. So this was really fun, and she had a talking cat too, which was just a hoot. I loved it. And the ending for this was just it was so fun. I loved it. This is a very whimsical, very supernatural, but very fun series. I don't know, it just feels very, like, it feels just so everyday that like everyone's like a witch or a magician or something. Like it just feels like normal, and I love that. So it's a really fun whimsical series. I've been listening to it on audio. If you enjoy cozies with holiday bents, this one has a lot of holiday cozies in it. So if you like that aspect, check out the series. Not Before You Enter, a Maxine Gerrymatter cozy mystery series by Tish Bouvier. This was a new release in September. This is an author who is actually, it's her debut. She'll be in Ashland, Oregon this month, which I'm so excited to meet her. And this book was 5 stars for me. I loved it. It's 5 stars. So Maxine is in a tough place in life. She is a retiree. I think she's a retired teacher, and her son basically brings her to this like retirement home for at least a while because I think she's broken her hip and she's recovering, and she just needs help at this point because she is not able to be on her own at this point, and her son, I think, travels for work. So she is basically dropped off at this home. She is very much not happy about this, and she's plotting her escape. She has so much spunk. I love her. I love Maxine. This is so, like, the humor in this, I love it. I love it so much. And basically at this like nursing home, someone is murdered and Maxine gets involved. She actually has a past where she worked as an assistant, kind of like a research assistant to a private investigator. So she breaks a lot of stereotypes with like older folks, where she is like super good on like computers and stuff like that. Like she can even hack into things, and I love that. I love that. But Maxine is such a good character, and this one definitely has some found family elements, as she does find some really good friends and like people to be like her own family at the nursing home. I love the sleuthing in this, and the ending, I barely pieced together like the who behind everything, but it was good. It was really good. I'm so excited to see where Maxine goes next, but I really did enjoy this. There's also a fair amount of crocheting and like knitting conversation because she joins this crochet group at the nursing home, and that's kind of a central socializing aspect for her. So if you enjoy reading about that in your cozies, it's like a theme that was definitely pretty prevalent, as you can see on the cover here. I really recommend this though. I loved it. I cannot wait to read more from this author. Now, I talked about this one in my recent vlog, which I'll link above. This is called Hexes and Hush Money by Hazel Carraway. This is a cat cafe witch mystery series. It is a paranormal cozy. The main character is a witch. She comes from a line of witches, and they have this cafe with cats, and her familiar is Hex, who is on the cover there, and there's a variety of other cats. But basically, this person is murdered. Very like classic cozy setup. Someone is murdered in her shop after drinking one of her like cafe beverages, and things start to go wrong. There's these like mysterious coins that appear. They're like magical coins that are kind of like omens. So I will link the vlog above if you want more in-depth thoughts on this, but basically I gave this 3 stars. It is a debut, and I don't like to rate debuts too harshly, but this one felt very rushed to me. Like it was a short cozy, which can definitely be done well, but this one, it just felt like there was too much happening. Like I needed a little bit more expansion upon things. I just felt like it was like bang, bang, bang. Like I needed a little bit more pacing and a little more depth with some of the things. And then there was a romantic subplot that was basically like, to me, it felt like insta-love, and it moved very fast by the end of this. So I didn't love it. However, the atmosphere and vibes of this, like the cafe setting, kind of the witchy history of the town, the element with the coins was really interesting. I thought that was unique. I'd never seen that in a supernatural cozy, and these like mysterious coins appearing that had to do with the mystery. It was really cool. I really liked that. I thought that was a really creative element. This is like a seaside town, which had a really nice charm to it. So overall, I liked a lot about this, but the pacing and just, it kind of felt rushed, especially the ending. Hello, Bowie. Hi, sir. Here we go, buddy. So basically, I gave it 3 stars. I wouldn't strongly recommend it, but if another one comes out in the series and it sounds interesting, I'd probably check it out. And I have Murder on Devil's Pond by Isla Rose. This is the first in the Hummingbird B&B. It's a New England cozy about these 2 sisters who run a B&B together. One is a lot older than the other. She's more of like the financial owner, and then we have our main character who is more of the like day-to-day manager of it. This does take place in Vermont. It's a really beautiful, charming inn. I love the focus on botany in this. The main character, Hannah, is super interested in making the inn and its grounds very like a very good habitat for creatures and animals and not disturbing the natural beauty. And I think that was really interesting to hear her thought process and how she was working with like contractors to make the landscape better for that sort of thing, and I really thought that was cool. The mystery was really good. I had a really good time with this. I think I gave it like 4.5 stars. I would love to know, do any of you know if there are more coming out in the series, because I can't find anything and this is the only book out and I want more because there's a lot of interesting family drama. I love her niece. I'm interested to see how her and her sister's relationship would evolve. The mystery itself was really good. The clues and everything were really interesting. Some really sad like backstories that you learn about throughout this. And I thought this was an excellent cozy, so I would love to see more from this author, but so far I haven't seen anything announced, and I think this book came out 2 years ago. Let me know if you know, because I need to know, and I would really recommend this. This was a great first book. Next I have 2 mysteries by Agatha Christie that I read. I read The Murder of Roger Ackroyd, which was incredible, and then I read Appointment with Death. Both of these were Hercule Poirot mysteries, so they're not technically cozy mysteries because they do involve someone who has like a detective, but they are on the cozier side in terms of like violence or anything like that. I've never heard anyone talk about Appointment with Death that I can think of, and this was such a good read. I mean, this one is so famous, and I understand why. It was a brilliant twist at the end. I loved it. I read this in my vlog, which I linked above, but basically we have the murder of Roger Ackroyd. Hercule Poirot gets involved. He's helping this doctor in the area who is helping to give him like different medical advice and notes on the case and interviewing the man's family. Roger Ackroyd's very wealthy, so maybe there's, you know, inheritance drama, all that sorts of things. This was so good. And An Appointment with Death actually is a vacation in Jordan. Hercule Poirot overhears, what is it he overhears? I wanna make sure I get this right. The first line of this book was so good. It says, "You do see, don't you, that she's got to be killed." Basically, there is this very oppressive matriarch. She is very wealthy, but she has these adult children who she won't let them do anything. She holds everything over their heads. She is very controlling, and in this one she is murdered, and Hercule Poirot overheard that sentiment from some of them. Earlier, he gets involved because it looks like maybe she had a heart attack, but then it could be suspicious. There's a lot of motive. A lot of people didn't like her. The ending for this one shocked me. I was able to piece together this one, and I really enjoyed it. I strongly recommend this. I think this was great. I understand why it's one of the most well-known Agatha Christie's, but this one I had not heard of, and it was really good. I loved the ancient ruins. I feel like this would be an especially good summer read because of the ruins in the Jordan setting. I thought it just felt very summery and hot, but Hercule Poirot was in top form with this, and this was such a good mystery. Like I said, I don't think I've heard anything about this, and I now want to watch, if there's a David Suchet version of this, I would love that, but this was a really good Agatha Christie. I feel like I'm not raving about this one as much, but I feel like this is so much more famous. I don't need to put as much into telling you to go read this, but both of these were phenomenal. 5-star reads for me. I need to read more Agatha Christie, clearly, and I had such a good time with this. Also, this book was originally sold for 35 cents, which it's an old, very old copy. I got it at a used book sale, but I just thought, I don't know, it just makes me smile when I see books that are like 35 cents and they have that on the cover. Alright, moving on to some thrillers next. I had a very hit or miss time with thrillers. We had some real duds in here. So for starters, I did read a few arcs from NetGalley. I read The Perfect Host by Heather Gudenkoff, which I think is coming out later this year. I want to say November. I'll put the release date on screen. I have read Heather Gudenkoff before, really enjoyed it, but this one was, like, it was good, but it wasn't a rave for me, unfortunately. Something about the ending just didn't, I don't know, it felt a little rushed. It didn't quite hit like I wanted it to. I could see where the author was going and I really appreciated that, but I wanted a little bit more. So this one involves a couple's gender reveal party in Wyoming. I really loved the setting for this. It felt very Western and fun. Our main characters are kind of Madeline and Wes Drake. They are extremely wealthy, and for their big gender reveal party, they rig up this system where they're basically going to shoot a truck and then it's going to explode with like powder or something to indicate the gender of their baby, to like for the reveal, rather than just do, you know, a cake or something with the color in it. And as you can imagine, this being a thriller, something goes wrong. A woman is found dead from the explosion, and so Agent Jamie Saldano is brought in to look at this case, and basically he has a connection to the small town. He has his own dark history in the town that he kind of wants to explore because some things were left unanswered all those years ago for him. So it's kind of two mysteries going on at once. One about what happened to Jamie's sister many years ago, and then two, was this gender reveal party gone awry? Was this like an accident, or was there some kind of intent? Did someone set this up? So I didn't love this as much as Everyone Is Watching or The Overnight Guest. It didn't give me quite the same shocking, like suspenseful vibes, but it was interesting. It was good. I'd say like a 3.5 or so star rating. Like, I still enjoyed it. I would still recommend it if it's something that sounds interesting to you. It's just not one that's like biggest knockout ever for me, unfortunately. Then I read The First Wives by S.E. Reed. This one was released on August 27th of this year, so it's a newer release, and I didn't love this one. It was okay. It was okay. So basically we have two women who are married to very wealthy men. They live in beachfront mansions. We're talking super, super wealthy. And they end up befriending each other, Hannah and Sophia. And Sophia is everything that Hannah didn't realize that she needed. She's really just like hurting for a friend, basically, and someone who can relate to her situation because she didn't come from wealth. And so this is a really good friendship for her at first, until it becomes clear that Sophia is keeping things from her, and this unravels into a big mystery. For starters, I feel like the twist for this was pretty, like, if you're a frequent thriller reader, I feel like you'll call it pretty easily, probably. I still enjoyed it. I still had a fun time. It was still like a good page turner for me, but I would say about 3 to 3.5 stars for me. It wasn't like anything spectacular, but I did like it. I had a good time with it. I did like the characters. I just feel like at times there was some kind of like loose ends with their storylines. I felt like the ending was a little bit rushed to me. I wanted a little bit more, but overall a good read. One that I loved, Forget Me Not by Stacey Willingham. This was a 5-star read for me. Oh. This is like everything I want in a thriller. I love this as much as A Flicker in the Dark, which was previously my favorite Stacey Willingham, and it's now tied with Forget Me Not. Stacey Willingham, I started reading her this year. I've been binging her books. I've been loving them. In this one, we have our main character, Claire, and when she was a teenager, her sister Natalie disappeared. She had been working at this like vineyard, and there was just some kind of mysterious aspects around her disappearance. It was never solved. There was never like a body found, just nothing. No like really resolved. It's really unresolved. Fast forward to the future, Claire is now a grown-up. She lives in the big city. She's an investigative journalist, but she's forced to come back home after a mysterious call from her father. This is a summer thriller, and she actually ends up taking a job at the same vineyard her sister worked at all those years ago. And this vineyard has some secrets. It has some secrets. For starters, I really enjoyed learning about the harvesting process for the grapes and things. I had no idea about all the detailed work that went into that, so I found that really interesting. But this vineyard has some secrets of its own, and part of that is that she actually stumbles upon a diary and you get to read the diary entries, which I loved. At first, this diary starts out as kind of a story of rebellion and love. It's like a teenager's perspective, and Claire is fascinated with it, but she quickly becomes more and more obsessed when she realizes that it takes a sinister turn, and it may be connected to her sister's disappearance all those years ago. Also, I have to give kudos for this cover. There are so many like little hidden details on this cover that you will pick up on as you are reading this book, which I love that so much in a cover when you're reading it and it becomes more and more clear as to why there's like little things on it. I love that. This was fantastic. This was probably my favorite thriller read. Probably my favorite thriller read. I also read The Butcher by Jennifer Hillier, and that was phenomenal. So Jennifer Hillier, very dark thriller writer, just heads up, everything I've read by her has been pretty darn graphic, very intense. This one features our main character Mark, who is the grandson of Edward Shank. Edward Shank is a retired police officer. I think he became the chief of police after he put away this infamous serial killer named the Butcher all these years ago. Well, Edward Shank is now being moved into a nursing home. He needs like extra support, and Mark will be moving into his home. While he's moving into his grandfather's home, he comes across this buried chest that will make him question everything, including some things about the Butcher. We also are reading from his girlfriend's perspective at times, and his girlfriend is kind of like an investigator, like journalist kind of person, and she actually believes that her mother was murdered by this Butcher. But if the man Edward Shank put away was the Butcher, the timeline doesn't work. So was it a copycat? Is the girlfriend wrong? What is going on? This one, oh, there's something, it wasn't the most shocking in terms of like twists and reveals, but the suspense and the questioning of what will these characters do to protect themselves or to find out the truth is so gripping. I could not put it down. It was intense. Those are my two like 5-star thriller reads this month. Absolutely loved them. Thriller I really struggled to get into, I actually ended up DNFing it about halfway in, was The Sorority Murder by Allison Brennan. I was really excited about this one because it is a college campus thriller, and I really enjoy that setting for mysteries. I read until page 179, so just about close to the halfway point. So what drew me into this is not only does it take place on a campus, but our main character is Lucas, and he, for his kind of like his capstone project, is doing a true crime podcast on a murder or disappearance that happened on the campus, and that is of a sorority girl named Candace. Candace was a really popular sorority girl, and she disappeared a few years prior, and her body was found a few weeks later, but nothing was ever solved. There was one person who was kind of in the spotlight, possibly, but they were never found, and Lucas wants to dig into this. He wants to interview the people on campus who were there maybe as freshmen when Candace was around. He also gets a woman named Regan to come on the show, and she had worked at the US Marshal, so she has kind of a background in this, and he thinks this will lend credibility to his podcast, which it does. However, strange things start to happen. One of the podcast people who calls in ends up turning up dead. There's also some people saying that Candace had a secret life, and all of this sounds amazing. All of this is like right up my alley in terms of thrillers, but I felt like this was so repetitive. I just kept like waiting for something to happen and more like plot movement, and it just felt like I was reading and reading and not a whole lot was happening. It just felt very repetitive, and I just couldn't get myself to keep reading. So that's the primary reason I put it aside, and I'm so sad because everything else about this sounded super interesting. Yeah, so that was my experience with Sorority Murder. On the positive side, I read the other book Catherine Green has out. I love The Lake of Lost Girls. That was one of my favorite thrillers I've probably read this year. And I picked up their other book, The Woods Are Waiting, which has the most beautiful autumnal cover ever. For starters with this one, the woods, the eeriness of this book, very creepy, a really fun read for that reason alone. But our main character is Cheyenne. She grew up in this very small town by like the Appalachian Mountains. There's this forest near the like edge of the town and where her home, like her childhood home is. She's forced to come back to help her mother who's not doing well, and basically all these years ago there were children who disappeared into the woods, never to be either seen again or to have their bodies found. And someone was caught years later, put behind bars, and the town breathed a big sigh of relief. However, it is happening again. And Cheyenne, along with her best friend from the past, Natalie, she's like the mayor's daughter, or like no, she's a judge's daughter. She's like kind of an influential, kind of rich girl in town. They have to work together to solve this. There's also this really creepy local legend about who is in the woods, kind of like a boogeyman situation. It is such an eerie, creepy thriller, but it had me on the edge of my seat. I am loving Catherine Green's writing. Her books, 2 for 2, have been fantastic, and I'm so excited because she's a 3rd book coming out next year, because there's no more to read, and I'm really bummed about that. Okay, and then lastly, for my vlog this month, which I'll link above, I read The Lies I Tell by Julie Clark, who wrote The Ghostwriter, which I really enjoyed. This was one of her older books. This was fantastic. If you enjoy a domestic thriller, if you enjoy con artists or scam artists in like mysteries, which I find just to be fascinating because I don't know how these people pull it off. Like, so I find the detailed process behind it just interesting, because I'm like, how are they doing that? I don't know. So this is a story that dives deeply into 2 women's psyche. We have Meg/Melody. She's the con artist. She goes by a variety of names. She is really adept at sliding into people's lives, telling them what they want to hear, and making off with money or whatever it is she's trying to scam them out of. Then we have Kat, who I think is also like an investigative journalist writer. She wants to do an expose on the scam artist who had affected her many years ago, and she's kind of looking for revenge, and she gets close to her, but she starts to actually question if she's in the right, and it's a really interesting look at morality and ethics. And the last page of this, it just made me happy. It was just satisfying. It was real satisfying. I had a really great time. Both of these characters are just really interesting, multifaceted women who had, you know, a lot of gray area with what they were doing at times, but it was just fascinating, and I just couldn't help but root for them in different ways all the same, and to be fascinated by Melody, Meg, you know, the scam artist lady's name, whatever you want to call her, and I just found that so fascinating. Last but not least, I read With a Vengeance by Riley Sager. I DNF'd it. I read about half of it. This was rough. This was so rough for me. Like, please go back to Lock Every Door. Please go back to some of the styles with the previous books. I did not love this. Basically we have this train setting, which right there, you got me. I love an isolation setting. I love a train setting. And this woman gets all these people together on board under different pretenses, and she wants revenge on them for something terrible they did. And you should feel sympathy for her, but I honestly just didn't connect with the character. Even as she's telling her story and why she's trying to get revenge on these people, I just didn't care. I know it sounds really bad, but there was just something about the writing. I had a really hard time getting into it, and I just felt like all the characters were awful, and even the main character who you were supposed to sympathize with, to the best of my knowledge, I just couldn't get into it, and I ended up DNFing it about halfway through because I wasn't enjoying it, which is actually the first time I've DNF'd a Riley Sager. So there's that. And last but not least, for nonfiction, I read Triangle, The Fire That Changed America by David Von Drale. And this is a social history book about the Triangle Shirtwaist Factory. This occurred in March of 1911 in New York City. Basically, there is this shirtwaist factory, which is like, a shirtwaist is kind of like it's like a trendy piece of clothing that allowed them to actually have more freedom in their movement and to be working. And it's a really great garment in terms of that, what it allowed women to be able to do as well in terms of like physicality, because more women were working at the time. But unfortunately, labor laws at this time were not established like at all. It's things that we take for granted nowadays, like don't lock your employees into like their work area in case, you know, a fire happens or a medical emergency or, you know, something where they need to get out. And those laws were not in effect at the time. So the owners of this big shirtwaist factory, which I think was like 9 stories high, the top few floors, a fire caught there, and a lot of tragedy could have been avoided had some of these labor laws been met. Like the fire escape was poorly done, people were locked in, they couldn't even exit the place. Like, it is absolutely a devastating read. It is a piece of history that I remember in middle school just learning about and being absolutely shocked, because like I said, you just don't fortunately, I don't typically think about people being locked in to their work environments, at least not in America, and it's so devastating to see the loss of life that occurred just because of the selfishness and greed of these owners who maybe were like worried about a little bit of theft, which I'm not saying theft is good, of course, but at the loss of life, not acceptable. And this book goes into the context of the time, the labor strikes and things leading up to this event, and what garment workers especially were trying to go through to get better working conditions, because people had been raising these complaints and issues for years to come. And there actually, I didn't realize, but there had been pretty significant fires like this at other garment factories with like large loss of life. Like I had imagined there had been other fires, but like we're talking there have been other kind of similar events, and this is just the one that kind of I think is more well known. But I just was like, it was just devastating. You learn a lot about the politics of the time, like Tammany Hall, and how things were kind of rigged, and that was interesting and sad in itself, but very interesting to read about. I gave this 4 stars. The only thing I wish the author had done is I would have loved a little bit more of like an individual look at different people or families who were affected by the fire, whether they lost a loved one or learning a little bit more about the individuals who perished in the fire. I like that personal element myself, versus like looking at it from kind of like a bird's eye view. I personally wanted a little bit more of an individual look at some of the people, and I know there's not time for them to go through all the people, because it was 146 workers, most who were young immigrant women who lost their lives. I think about 20 of the workers were men, but like 126 or so were women. And it's just, and many of them were like teenagers or just barely starting their adult years. It was just, anyways, like I said, this is an absolutely incredible read. I would recommend it if you're looking to learn more about this time or this event or just social history in general. I found this to be a really difficult read. I read this over 4 days. It's not crazy long. It's about 300 pages, but it took me about 4 days to get through just because I couldn't binge read this because it was just so sobering. But I do recommend this as a good historical read. I'm definitely curious to read more, maybe by this author. I'm not sure what else they've put out. And yeah, I would recommend it. I think it's a really important topic, and it's just so hard to believe that this happened a little over 100 years ago. And it's like, I don't know, it feels like these laws should have been in place so much earlier, like, you know, not locking people in, having proper fire escapes, I don't know. And it's not like they didn't have the technology for some of these things, like they really did. It just was a lack of caring or wanting to spend the money on the owners or like managers' part, which is just, yeah, absolutely devastating. Anyway, so that's not the most uplifting way to end this, but I do recommend this. It is a hard-hitting nonfiction, but it is very well written and very good, and I learned a lot about it that I didn't know before, even though I had done like a report on this in school, so I maybe knew more than the average person going into it. So I found it to be a really good read. I would recommend it. As I know it's a little bit outside of my typical mystery genre, but in case any of you are interested in a very good nonfiction, really recommend that. Thank you guys so much for watching. Please let me know down below, what did you read this last month? What were your favorite reads? Did you have any big misses? Have you read any of the books that I talked about? What were your thoughts on them? I would love to hear it, even if your opinions are different than my own. Don't forget to like and subscribe. I post new book content every week on my channel, especially within the mystery and thriller genres. So if you like cozy reading vlogs, mysteries, thrillers, cozy mysteries, I talk about all that here. Thanks for spending your time with me today, and I'll see you guys soon. Bye!